We have tons of fallers in our rankings. These guys are plummeting down our rankings for one reason or another. We've got to talk about it and if we're actually going to panic and sell or what we're going to do here. Let's start with TreVeyon Henderson, the rookie phenom out of Ohio State who has come in this year and has so far done absolutely freaking nothing. He has done nothing in that offense. In an offense where he should theoretically have plenty of opportunity. He's going up against Ramondre Stevenson for snaps, and he was going up against Antonio Gibson. And so what we expected to see this week is TreVeyon Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson have about a 50-50 split. That's what they had in week 5 against Buffalo. Now that Gibby's going to be gone, we're just going to see more of Henderson. And so, 50-50 was what you expected. And here's what you got. Ramondre 72, TreVeyon Henderson 30. It was a 70-30 split in Ramondre's direction. Here's the question that I'm going to pose to you. Because you have eyes, and it's not like when TreVeyon Henderson is on the field. Yeah, he does show glimpses of being explosive.
How dare you assume I have eyes?
He does show glimpses here. But realistically, it's not like TreVeyon Henderson is out there and every time he touches the ball, especially in the running game, it's like, oh man, this guy is clearly a dominant running back, like a runner. I don't think you're seeing that. And so we're going to be the channel that tells you not what you want to hear, not what the sexy thing is, but the truth. The truth is, right now, TreVeyon Henderson, through 6 weeks of the season, has had every opportunity to cut into the snap share there, especially Ramondre Stevenson's snap share, and he hasn't done it. And realistically, I don't think this means he's dead. I don't. But everybody's telling you TreVeyon's this big buy, and then he's going to explode and going to hit at the end of the season. And that's definitely still a possibility, and if it happens, I'm not going to be surprised. But the reality is, I don't think it's a guarantee that it happens. And I think buying in TreVeyon Henderson is a little bit of a risk because I think you're betting on, you could be buying into something that returns absolutely zero for your fantasy football team, when in reality, because TreVeyon Henderson is priced so high because of his potential, you could actually go get somebody in that range that is going to score fantasy points for you in an NFL right now, in a fantasy format right now, where you have tons of injuries at the wide receiver position. You have running backs where it is an absolute crap show past the top 15. And you really can't afford. There are this many teams that can afford to go buy TreVeyon Henderson on a fantasy football team and it not hurt them if it doesn't actually. The price is pretty much always outweighed what he was doing, but now the price is almost outweighing the risk of buying him. So it's going to depend how far people move him down rankings this week. Now I say all that, and people say, well, look at Bucky Irving last year, and Bucky is a fine example. Bucky hit his stride after the bye week 12, 13, and on. And maybe that's what TreVeyon Henderson does. But do remember that Bucky Irving last year, by the way, this is one thing that's extremely important to note. Rachaad White was a running back 1 in that offense the year before. Tell me the last time in this Patriots offense that there's been a running back 1. And it's a new offense, new coach, but it doesn't matter. Like realistically, that is all the more reason to say that this might not happen. Bucky was going into a situation where it was kind of tailor-made for a running back to be a top 12 running back last year. I can't say the same about TreVeyon Henderson, and they continue to give Ramondre Stevenson snaps, even though Ramondre, 13 carries for 18 attempts, looks legitimately terrible. For as bad as he looked against the Saints, Henderson did look better. Now, the question is, does he become Bucky Irving? I don't know, and it depends on what you can get him for. I think if you can get him from a team that's got 1 or 2 wins, and they're going to give him away cheap, it's fine. But realistically, I've had to move him down my rankings because I can't keep pricing him for this big breakout at the end of the season when there's absolutely no guarantee that's going to happen. I still think it's possible. I still have belief in TreVeyon Henderson, but I'm going to have to be careful here. And I think you should be careful buying TreVeyon Henderson moving forward if the breakout doesn't end up coming.
I think Kenneth Walker at this point has just proven for the 4th year in a row what he is in this offense. He's a big play, big upside running back that's able to put up really great games in your flex spots. And he also has one of the lowest floors of a running back with the talent level that he has. And he's just not consistent enough on the field. He doesn't have a good enough receiving skill set to raise his floor for us to be super comfortable with him every single week. And again, I'll just reinforce, a couple of weeks ago, Avery was like, people are going to give you so much grief for having TreVeyon Henderson at running back 25. And guess where we have him right now? Right around there. Running back 24, running back 25. Because this is what I foresaw. For every game that TreVeyon Henderson has 16, 19 carries in games where he's running the show the whole week or the whole game, there are games like Tampa and Jacksonville where you're essentially in a shootout and Darnold is passing the ball a ton. And look at these splits between Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. While the fantasy upside relevance lies with Kenneth Walker any given week. Charbonnet got all 4 goal line carries this week against Jacksonville. Charbonnet had all the 2-minute drill snaps because he is the receiving skill set back, and his receiving upside isn't even that great. He had 7 third down snaps to Kenneth Walker's 2. Actually, they had Kenneth Walker didn't have any third down snaps at all. Actually, they had no running backs on the field for 2 of those 9 third down snaps. And again, I don't want to dog on TreVeyon Henderson this entire time, but this to us is just a reinforcement of what Kenneth Walker is and what he offers for your fantasy team rest of season. You're going to have big weeks for Kenneth Walker. You're going to have game plans where Kenneth Walker is going to run the show against Arizona again in week 10, against Tennessee in week 12, against potentially Atlanta in week 14, Carolina week 17. Maybe they take control of the game against Washington after the bye and he has another big game there. But again, you also see what his floor is in these shootout matchups like Tampa and Jacksonville. And with the way Sam Darnold is playing right now and the way that JSN is playing in this offense, which is a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy football, top 4 at least rest of the season, you're not looking at a consistent outlook for any running back in this offensive situation whatsoever. For everything I said about Kenneth Walker, I still have him ranked over Charbonnet because Charbonnet isn't any better. For Charbonnet getting all of these passing down sets and opportunities, he isn't actually capitalizing on that. 11 and 4 points the last 2 weeks to Kenneth Walker's 9 and 4. And his big game this week was a 12-pointer against Arizona, as opposed to Walker, who is capable of putting up 18, 20-plus points any given week. So at this point, you're looking at a really, really gross range, value range for Kenneth Walker, where he's kind of in the same tier as Montgomery, Chuba Hubbard, Jaylen Warren, Jordan Mason, Chase Brown, a couple of running backs that are number ones in bad offenses, a couple of running backs that are potentially stuck in committees, maybe rest of the season, like Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. At the end of the day, again, this is more of a solidifier for what tier Kenneth Walker belongs, and not necessarily like sell Kenneth Walker for anything, because I think a lot of people are down on him at this point.
All right, if you'd like to check out our rest of season rankings in their entirety, you can also use our free trade calculator and plug your team into our My Teams tool to see where you rank for the rest of the season. You can access all 3 of those tools for free down in the link in the pinned comment. Just use code DOMAIN, create a free account, and go use those tools and see where you rank out, see where we have guys ranked, etc. Again, it's completely free. I've got the link in the pinned comment. You can use that. This is an example of how to handle when you are wrong about something, because you nailed the Kenneth Walker situation. You were exactly right. I thought he was going to get more relevant carries after he was performing well, so I was 1,000% wrong on that. Yeah, I should have ranked him where you had him ranked. That's how you admit you're wrong. I just wanted to show you that, because you don't do it as well as I do.
What do you mean?
You always think, oh well. Jamar Chase still had 6 points going in the fourth quarter. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You're still wrong. All right, let's talk about Kraft.
This is 1 week.
No. Kraft.
I'll give you credit next week if he has 30 again.
Nathan, come on. He's the wide receiver 5. Tucker Kraft. This one's interesting because I don't know, man. I'm guilty of this too. I think I'm guilty of drinking the Tucker Kraft Kool-Aid. Because realistically,
I was
realistically against the no, it's just me. It was just me against Washington.
I mean, sure. If you want to be the only guy that drunk it, that's fine.
No, it was Bofa. Week 2 against Washington. I mean, I just saw it and I was like, man, this guy really can be a good NFL tight end. And I think I just kind of got ahead of my skis here. I'm very sorry about that. I'm guilty of it. I'm not sure how aggressively we were telling you to go buy Tucker Kraft, but I was ranking him pretty aggressively at that point. And realistically, the problem with Tucker Kraft had always been in this offense, the same problem that every passing option in this offense ever has: volume. That is the problem with the Green Bay Packers. Okay, and so when you're looking at Tucker Kraft last year, I mean, you're looking at the games where he had touchdowns: 13, 10, 16, 12, 24, 17 points in 2024. But let's look at the games where he didn't have touchdowns: 5, 3, 4, 3, 7, 0, 13, 5, 9, 7, and 7.
So one double-digit
game.
So
one double-digit game when he didn't score a touchdown. Let's look at this year. The games where he scored touchdown: 9, 24. The games where he hasn't: 5, 10, and 12. Oh, sorry, no, for just 5 and 10. He had a touchdown against Cincinnati.
Yeah, he did, which salvaged
his day, because the problem is with Tucker Kraft, from a target standpoint right now, it's not cutting it, okay? And from I can just tell you from a pure volume standpoint what he's doing, but I can tell you confidently that it's not enough for Tucker Kraft, and it's going to make him a very shaky fantasy option. He's 23rd among tight ends in the NFL in targets, 17th in target share. He's only 26th in routes run, okay? And so, on a team that is 24th in team pass plays per game. Now, yeah, he's second in yards per route run. This is the thing. every Packers wide receiver, or there's usually a Packers wide receiver, and in this case, Tucker Kraft, that from a yards per route run efficiency standpoint grades out super well and is very good on that in that metric. It shows they're one of the most efficient guys in the league. You can see Dontavian Wicks a couple years ago led the NFL, I think, in yards per route run. But the volume is not there. And this makes him a very shaky fantasy start because even though he had 12 points against Cincinnati, it was because he had that touchdown. Realistically, he had 2 targets that he caught. And outside of that, he didn't do anything. I'm not going to super panic on Kraft because, in my opinion, past like the top 2 or 3 tight ends right now in fantasy football, it is a complete cluster frick every single week. I mean, even Laporta, who's had 2 good weeks. Before that, he didn't have volume. And the volume's still not where I think it should be with Laporta. 6 is better than 4, but like, come on. And so I don't think you can freak out on him. I don't think you can sell him for anything. But realistically, I don't think he's the slam dunk pick that we kind of assumed he would be. I don't think so. No. He's just on the weeks where he's not going to score touchdowns, he is going to be disappointing. I do like that the lowest he scored this year is 6 points. That won't kill you. But realistically, again, like we have to be acknowledging the issues with Kraft and the issues with starting Kraft every week, and that's the fact that his volume is going to be very low on a week-to-week basis. And so with Kraft, obviously, still a good fantasy tight end. Still somebody I think you got to start on a week-to-week basis. He still has touchdown upside in a very good offense, a top 12 NFL offense. But let's be realistic about our expectations for Tucker Kraft moving forward. He's going to have to be ranked in the same tier as guys like Dalton Kincaid at this point, who continue to produce. Hopefully he produces Monday. We're recording this on Monday as well, with tight end 7 on the year. And so with Kraft, temper your expectations, not selling him or anything, but definitely acknowledging that the volume's not where it should be with him.
I think we have to accept the reality of Marvin Harrison Jr. being in the Cardinals offense for the rest of the season as well. And I'm kind of coming to terms with that and just realizing that the advantage of having Marvin Harrison Jr. in your flex spot is really not an advantage. It's just a high upside, very low floor play. And this week, obviously, it was shortened in a matchup that was very friendly for him because they had no Travarius Ward and no Kenny Moore. So he would have had a productive day this week against the Colts secondary. But I still would have had the same take, even if he had a big day, compared to what he ended up not having, going down with the concussion, and he'll probably miss a week because of that. And that is Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett, whoever it is. This offense is not good enough for their players to be ultra productive outside of Trey McBride. Trey McBride is a very easy, very reliable target in the short to intermediate game. He brings down contested catches in the red zone. He's kind of a go-to there at this point. And Marvin Harrison, as an X-wide receiver lined up on the outside, is not a consistent enough target. And we stand by, it's not necessarily his fault. He had a couple of drops early in the season. He's really come on and even has had some really solid clutch catches over the past couple of weeks, and the volume is just not there consistently enough because Kyler cannot read the field consistently enough for Marv to get this volume that we're expecting from him, which is why I have to move him down my rankings quite a bit over or below guys that are just producing more consistently than he is. Chris Olave gets more consistent target volume. Devonta Smith, his boom games are bigger than Marvin Harrison's boom games, and his floor is just as low. Ladd McConkey, now with no Amari and Hampton for probably 6 weeks is what we're gathering, the way that the Chargers are talking about Hampton and his ankle injury. I mean, you're looking at Ladd finally being on the up, which we were panicking about him for quite a while. Another thing that I was wrong about. I had him as a panic as a 10 a couple weeks ago. That's looking really bad right now. DK Metcalf is just outproducing Marv right now. You've got Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, Xavier Worthy, a couple of 2s here. Like George Pickens is a 2 in an offense that just throws the ball more, and Dak is, honestly, he's an MVP candidate right now. So every single one of those receivers, when I was sticking to my guns and keeping Marvin Harrison, in the top 24, I have him as wide receiver 28 now and continuing to fall. This is just a guy that I don't think is going to be reliable at all rest of the season.
You can talk about Kyler too while you're at it. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing.
I mentioned Kyler being unable to consistently get the ball to Marvin Harrison, and this not being Marv's fault. Like, Marv is just a recipient, or I guess not a recipient, of Kyler Murray just honestly not being as good as we expected him to over the last couple of years. I mean, this is a trend that's happened over the last few years since he went down with that ACL injury a few years ago. And I think you are probably going to see long-term change there at the quarterback position. I don't think it'll happen next year, but probably the year after that when some cap space opens up. But all that to say, this season, Kyler Murray, from a production standpoint, I mean, he's where's his ceiling? Yeah, his floor is high. I'll give you that. 38, 32, 37, 41, 25 rushing yards. He always has like anywhere from 5 to 7 rushing attempts per game. Only 1 rushing touchdown, which salvaged his day against Tennessee in week 5. 18, 15, 14, 18, and 15 points in the first 5 weeks in a cupcake schedule, man. I mean, New Orleans, Carolina, and Tennessee. Like, as we're Colts fans, we're 5-1. We're super stoked. Colts have had one of the easiest schedules through the first 6 weeks of the season, and Daniel Jones has delivered because of it, and he's put up 25-point games. Kyler hasn't even come close. He hasn't even sniffed 20 points. He hasn't even come close to 20 points. His passing volume, 35 and 41 pass attempts against San Fran and Tennessee, good for 14 points. He is so inefficient with the volume that he provides in the air and doesn't provide enough on the ground for him to even give you a ceiling. His rushing upside is just raising his floor, and that's literally it. Like, this is dating back to last season when I was a heavy investor in the Flock League and Kyler Murray, I think in like the 6th round, because he was the cheapest rushing QB. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at this price. Jackson Dart and Daniel Jones are more serviceable options than Kyler Murray is, just in terms of the upside that they offer on a week-to-week basis. And it's not going to get any better in Arizona anytime soon, so long as Kyler is doing this. And I don't think it's going to get any better. I think Kyler has shown the type of quarterback that he can be in this situation in Arizona, and it's kind of just a mediocre quarterback that isn't really going to put you over the top any given week in fantasy football.
All right, let me talk about Alvin Kamara here. With Kamara, I think we were a little bit too high on Kamara coming into the season. Ugh. Eventually, it was going to happen with Kamara. Eventually, it was going to happen. He's the running back 21 so far through 6 weeks. 12 points against New England. And with Kamara, he's been really a 10 to 15 point per game guy, and that's it.
But Avery, Alvin Kamara is going to get traded. No,
it doesn't look like he's going to.
I don't think he is.
And 11.6.
That's a big time prediction that you're just hoping is going to pan out this season for him to show any semblance of like crazy upside.
11.6 points per game from this guy this year so far in 2025, whereas in 2024, 19 points per game, which was 5th in the league. In fact, the year before that, 3rd in the league in points per game, 4th in the league in 2021. Like, this guy has been one of the best fantasy assets of all time. But realistically, there are some concerning things about Alvin Kamara this year. For example, he is 4th in routes run in the NFL among running backs. He's 32nd in yards per route run. He's simply not efficient. He's not efficient on the ground either. 2 yards per carry. He's 37th in the league. Yards per touch. He's 41st in the league, right? And, 15th in receiving yards and, 4th in receptions is great. But 15th in receiving yards in the NFL, if you see Alvin Kamara at that mark, something is not going right. That's just a fact. That's just facts. Because for example, let's look at 2024. 2024, obviously, again, 19 points per game, was 2nd in receiving yards in the NFL, 543, 2nd in receptions as well. In yards per route run, again, that efficiency metric, he was 9th in the NFL. And a lot of this comes from the fact that I think Kamara is starting to slow down a little bit. I think you're starting to get Saints fans and the Saints organization and in a mindset where it's like, we're going to honor what he's done here so far, rather than this guy's in his prime and he's going to kill it for us the next couple of years. You can see, even with the trade rumors and things like that, them kind of reflecting on his time. And look, like, I don't necessarily think it's like a huge changing of the guard either, because Kendre Miller hasn't even been productive on an increased snap share.
I mean, Kamara's snap share has remained very similar to what it was last season,
and he's just not producing. And part of the reason
the touchdowns aren't there.
Part of the reason for that is the touchdowns aren't there in the offense altogether.
Yep.
The receiving usage is not elite like it once was. He's not efficient on the ground because that offense is so bad. And so it's a combination of things that just kind of makes for a perfect storm where Alvin Kamara rest of the season, you do have to move him down rankings quite a bit. And so when you're looking on the site at where Kamara is ranked compared to other running backs rest of the season, you've got him next to Amari and Hampton. If you're a 1-loss or 0-loss team, like, you got to take Hampton. He's behind JCM now. Hopefully, again, we're recording this Monday. Hopefully he crushes it tonight, and we have little doubt about him moving forward. But, next to guys like Kenneth Walker, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, who all have their questions as well. And so with Kamara, I don't think he's somebody necessarily that you can sell off. You just kind of have to bite the bullet knowing that you draft him in the 3rd or 4th round. He really is going to be a running back 2, pretty much a mid to low end running back 2. First time we've ever been able to say that about Alvin Kamara. But really, unless he does get traded, which I don't think he's going to.
No, I mean, they just went out there this week and they were like, yeah, we're not trading him.
So you can kind of forget
which
about
is,
that.
Kind of front office speak too.
That really is the only way he would rebound and have a running back one season again. And so his streak, his really impressive streak, is going to end here. And for Alvin Kamara, it's been fun, but this is kind of our eulogy to Kamara in the sense that he is not a premier elite fantasy asset anymore.
If somehow this offense can figure out how to score points and he gets touchdowns, then you'd have a different outlook for him. But it doesn't really matter if he's raising his floor at the receiving upside if you're never going to get to the house, and it's just it's not happening.
I think it's probably GG's.
Yeah. Stephon Diggs is another guy that we had a couple of really fun weeks with Stephon. We both had to move him up our rankings quite a bit. It was looking like one that was looking pretty good for, talk about Avery and I having a debate in the offseason. Stephon Diggs not doing anything, not being relevant through the first few weeks, and then he comes in, gets like 7 and 12 targets, then he's back to 3. I think at this point, we're both kind of anyone's guess what he's going to do rest of the season. Like, I could easily see myself being wrong long-term about Diggs, and he ends up being like a wide receiver 2 or a high-end wide receiver 3, or he just kind of goes back to what he did through the first 4 weeks of the season, which was pretty much nothing, nothing super consistently relevant. This was a matchup against New Orleans where, again, only 3 targets, 3 receptions, 28 yards. He does have Tennessee next week. He's got Cleveland after that. Stout run defense with Cleveland. They'll have to pass the ball to be successful in that game. Then you got Atlanta, Tampa, which could be a couple shootouts. We'll see what happens here for Diggs over the next month. But I will say, with this volatility of weekly outcomes for Stephon Diggs and his production, I think that kind of has solidified our rank of Diggs in the low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4 range. I have him at 36 right now, right by guys like Ricky Pearsall, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, who honestly has been a follower as well that we could talk about. But I don't really trust Diggs any more than any of those guys in that range, like Shakir, like Downs, like Cooper Kupp. But on the positive side, I don't necessarily trust him any less than any of those other players. And some of those are pretty big names. So that is at least a positive. If you invested in Stephon Diggs, at least you're not getting absolutely nothing if you drafted him in the 7th round. This season, he has shown some semblance of like solid production upside any given week. And if May continues this streak of really, really good quarterback play, which is honestly like top 6 quarterback play right now in the NFL, then he could have some more really nice productive weeks in your flex spot.
So again, all of these guys, we had to move down our rankings for one reason or another, whether we're panicked or not panicked on them. It's a case-by-case basis, but we're getting to the point in the season where, we've played 6 weeks, guys. We are a third of the way through the entire NFL season. We are more than a third of the way through the fantasy season, and we are almost halfway through the regular season for fantasy football. This is it. Like, there's not a ton we're waiting on. If the guys aren't performing by now, they're probably not going to in most cases. So make sure you drop a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you play fantasy football. Again, you can check out our rest of season ranks and stuff on the site if you want to. Link in the pinned comment. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here soon.